Wet cleaning, a 7-step program that guarantees effective sanitation. To ensure that processing areas are free from contamination, Kraft has established a 7-step program which is at the heart of the sanitation process. Sanitation personnel must progress through the 7 steps at the same time in strict sequence in order to avoid any cross-contamination of equipment. The process begins with Step 1, the dry clean. Failure to complete the dry clean effectively will lead to an extended pre-rinse, pooling, blocking, and even backing up of drains. It also results in an increased frequency of handling and emptying the drain components, which are typically one area in a processing plant with the highest population of microorganisms. Equipment is disassembled during Step 1, so personnel must pay particular attention to proper lockout-tagout procedures to ensure personal safety. Once everyone has completed Step 1, Step 2, the pre-rinse begins. This enables the detergent, when applied later, to break down any films on the surface that are being cleaned. Equipment should be rinsed from the top towards the bottom, taking care to rinse underneath the equipment and out into the open where it can be picked up. Avoid using the hose as a broom for the floor. Bulk soils can be simply gathered with a squeegee and put into a trash container, once again taking care not to use drains as collection points. Since the volume and pressure of water utilized during the pre-rinse makes it difficult to isolate overspray, sensitive equipment must be covered and sealed unless it's already designed to be truly sealed. Next, Step 3, soap and scrub. Proper personal protective equipment, or PPE, must be worn when handling chemicals. It's important at this point to verify the compatibility of cleaning materials and equipment. Visually, the equipment will look clean going into Step 3. Soap should be applied to the walls and the floors first, and apply mechanical action to the floor once finished. Large areas may need to be rinsed just before soaping to avoid chemicals drying onto the equipment. Soap is applied from the bottom to the top. It's important to establish a minimum contact time so soap does not dry on surfaces, usually about 10 minutes. Mechanical action must be applied to the product contact surfaces. Typically, this is completed with the use of a manual scrub pad, taking care not to migrate back and forth between product contact surfaces and non-product contact surfaces. Mechanical action, good old elbow grease, is the most effective method for removing microorganisms and biofilms. As always, it's critical that sanitation personnel are able to access these surfaces for manual cleaning. Drains should be cleaned at the end of this step. Next comes Step 4, the post-rinse. This should be completed in the order the soap or detergent was applied. Walls, floors, then equipment. Using a high-volume, low-pressure rinse. This type of flood rinse minimizes the risk of splashing of any of the cleaning agents, which are potential vehicles for migrating microorganisms. Once the equipment is rinsed, it is now considered clean, so it's important to remember not to spray the floors to minimize the risk of cross-contamination. A flashlight is a necessary tool for a personal inspection to evaluate the effectiveness of the cleaning. Equipment should be free of films, hazes, and water beads. Step 5 is next, removing and assembling. Now that the process area is clean, it's time to double-check and start putting things back together. First, remove all standing moisture, which includes condensation from above. Standing moisture, whether it is water or detergent, will counteract the sanitizer applied later in Step 7. And of course, moisture also provides a growth environment for microorganisms. It is for these reasons that self-draining surfaces are a key sanitary design requirement. Now that the equipment is clean, personnel can change out of the sanitation wetsuits and put on GMP outerwear before handling the clean components. Proper lockout-tagout should be followed, and only then should the equipment be assembled. Any required lubrication should be done at this point. Any equipment components which will not be accessible for inspection and sanitizing once assembled can now be inspected and sanitized. Now the equipment can be assembled. Now it's time for Step 6, the pre-op inspection. Once the equipment has been assembled, it should be cycled to ensure that any soils that may have been trapped can be worked out. Any deficiencies must be noted and corrected before moving to Step 7. The pre-op inspection is also the time to confirm the safe removal and storage of any cleaning materials, equipment, and tools used in the cleaning and sanitation process. Now that the processing area is clean, it's time for Step 7, disinfect and sanitize. Before turning the line over to production, prior to getting started, check once again to make sure there is no standing moisture, which would dilute or cancel the sanitizer. Equipment should be flood sanitized with the no-rinse concentration of sanitizer. Refer to the label for concentration limits. Equipment should be cycled during the application of sanitizer to ensure complete coverage. The target contact time is a minimum of 30 seconds, preferably 1 to 2 minutes. Walls and floors should be foam sanitized with a higher concentration. Foam the sanitizer from the bottom to the top. Foaming provides a visual indicator to be sure of total coverage and contact time. In the case of walls and floors, the minimum contact time is 10 minutes. Do not dilute or rinse any of the surfaces prior to the contact time requirement. Once the sanitizer contact times have been achieved, the 7 steps of wet cleaning have been successfully completed. The area can now be released to production.